Good morning, boys and girls. Interesting world we've got out there. Hope you all are doing well. There's no reason not to. Why don't we just move directly into questions?
Yeah, so this week I have been contemplating on what I am really afraid of, like what are my actual fears are that pop up, and the biggest category seems to be two, and the first one is basically like me ending up on the street, or like me, let's say, going to like jail, or like me getting disabled, and it just feels like that those things are gonna be so bad, so worse. But then if I look at my life from the past, whenever something really bad happened, I automatically hooked into finding a way out, or like focused on the task at hand, and that took the pain away in a
Okay,
very.
so let me make 2 points. Number one, you can kind of count on old age, sickness, and death, right?
Mhm.
Old age, sickness, and death. I guess you could have death before you get old age and sickness, but otherwise, it's the triple threat, right? That the Buddha that started the Buddha on his journey. And a moment's reflection about this world will show you that you never know when things are going to go completely south in terms of ending up in jail, or ending up impoverished, or ending up having to flee your country and live somewhere else, or whatever. We reassure ourselves, with things like it can't happen here, or that's going to happen to somebody else, not to me. But if we're just honest with ourselves, we see that old age, if we're lucky, sickness, that's if we're that's just the nature of having a body, and death. Those are that's our situation on this planet. Now, there is a way to deal with it. That's the interesting thing. In particular, Buddhist training, and this is really special about them. Not unlike, but the focus is different. Say in Hinduism, or in Sufism, and even somewhat in Christianity. They specifically set out to end suffering, and they have the means by which to do it, but it requires a fairly highly evolved person. I say fairly because that's probably the best word. It's nothing huge, but it's like being a senior in high school, or maybe even a freshman in college, to understand the naturelessness of all phenomena, and the emptiness of all things, and the absence of any inherent reason to suffer beyond delusion. So if you want to ask me questions about that, you can, but notice I say suffering, not pain necessarily. I'm not trying to oversell this thing, but go ahead. I'm actually not trying to sell it at all. What I'm trying to do is attract people who can hear. Only certain people are so inclined, or so are able, and even fewer than that actually are inspired to take up this journey of 1,000 miles. The way, what the Taoists call the way. But those people can be free of suffering and anxieties about death. But people just don't want to hear that. They want magical thinking. So much medicine, or homeopathy, or hypnosis, or God knows what. There's a lot of that goes on in both the Eastern and the Western worlds. All right, so go ahead. If there's any questions about that, let me know.
Yeah, so I was looking at this problem for like multiple levels. So at the very basic level is what, like people do in the regular life is people like go into finding a solution, or like they go to like alcohol, they go to like other means to take their mind off of the situation, and that helps them like get by a bit. The second level is where like how I used to deal with, which is like focus really on the problem at hand, and just focusing on the solution used to lift the pain away. And
Right,
then
no, I'm not recommending that approach. What I'm recommending is a deep understanding of the nature of reality.
mhm,
That, rather than focusing, of course, you're going to focus on whatever. If a refrigerator is pressing on your foot because you let down on your foot, of
mhm,
course you're going to remove the refrigerator. If you have a hyperthyroidism and you need medical treatment or surgical treatment, of course you'll get those things.
mhm,
But what I'm pointing to is something more foundational and basic than that,
mhm.
which does not only relieve suffering, but it prevents suffering.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Okay, go ahead.
So like,
remember, I'm speaking to the audience too. Okay.
got it, yeah. And then the third level, at least to me, it seems like the people who go into meditation and like all these like meditation practices, so that helps them create some peace in the mind, because meditation also feels like kind of a distraction, but it's maybe a better distraction than other
Okay,
ways.
but the way meditation works is that it calms the mind enough to where you can obtain some insight.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the key, because you can meditate, and I know people like this, till the cows come home, right?
Mhm.
And it's not going to give you necessarily greater insight.
Mhm.
So the struggle for insight is equally important,
Mhm.
or in some cases, well, let's just say as important, just like the practice of forbearance, generosity, effort, discipline, and persistence are important, almost as important as the sincere intention, right? So again, it's not particularly problem specific, and the approach is not as simple. I mean, not just meditation, I guess is what I want to say.
Mhm. Yeah. And then the next level seems to me is when I realize that this is just like a cycle that keeps going on, and the better way is to just detach myself, or passion, like be in dispassion, not really like seeing the futility of being attached to these thoughts and or like these desires, and that.
Correct. But again, for the sake of the audience, I know you know this, but you said detach yourself,
Mhm.
and the thing is, if you have no self, there's nothing to detach.
Mhm.
And again, that's why this morning, I'm pointing to insight as critical.
Mhm.
So if there's no self to get attached, there's no self to suffer when things get unattached or lost or die or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, insight is critical, and I'm thinking that's the step that may benefit you the most at the moment. So keep going. This is good.
Yeah. So that is like level 4, where I realize with my experiences the futility of being attached to things, and then slowly I detach from them. Then the next level is even questioning.
But remember, the objects are primarily conceptual. They're ideas. They're not things.
Mm-hmm.
These are ideas that are mainly. So people think that when the Buddha says don't get attached, and the Taoists say that they're talking about, don't get attached to your car, to your new purse, your new Balenciaga or whatever it might be. Don't get attached to those things because there's only suffering down that road. Well, yeah, that's true too, but better still is to eliminate the self, or to realize that the self that could get attached is inherently non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do that, then you can see that all these objects or concepts, beliefs, oh, I believe in myself, I believe in my nation, I believe in my leaders, I believe in my, religious doctrine. Instead of, when you can see through those, there's no way you can get attached to them.
Yeah.
Did you see the point?
Yeah, or like even believing in identity, that's also
well, right, because if you haven't attached, see, that's the biggest concept of all, the concept of the self, right?
Yeah.
So if you could patiently and diligently disassemble that self to where there's no way it can come back, conceptually, then you've gone a long way towards relieving your suffering.
Yeah. And then the next level seems to me that I am trying to practice is question where this actual self that I keep worrying about is, or does it even exist? And then
well, it exists, but it exists in your mind, and that's the rub, right? Go ahead.
But even if I just like logically look at it, right, and how things were when I, like, the first memory I have is like when I was like maybe 2 or 3 years old, how life was then and how life is now. So there's like something that is seems like fundamental, and then whatever I was calling self is just a temporary thing that got accumulated and also keeps changing and things like that. And as I keep doing the practice of like who am I, or like the other dharma practices, it just seems more and more that there is no me, but just, I don't want to call it energy, but yeah, I don't know what to call it, but just like some awareness.
The energy is another concept.
Yeah. It's just like some awareness or knowing that things are, but it's not that I am, but just that things are, or the experiences.
Okay.
And but even after like thinking that, or even experiencing that, I'm not able to find the I that I'm looking for. Still, yeah, it helps a little, but it doesn't help fully in getting rid of all these fears. And
of course not, because you're still looking for that I. Just see the nature of the question. This is why, I don't particularly go for some of the, the contemporary Hindu practices, right, or the practices of who is it? Ramakrishna? No, I'm sorry.
Ramana
Maharshi.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, as a preliminary practice, and this happens in Chan and in Zen also, they'll send the student out to find the self and to bring it back to the teacher. And then after a few years of searching, they still haven't come up with anything. But see, that's a preliminary practice. Later, there is no one to look for the self. That whole concept has been given up. The attachment to the construct of the self has been given up. And then, now here's where meditation comes in. You meditate. So here what I'm doing is taking you to the next level, okay? Here you begin to see that all of your sense organs are totally independent of each other. And they don't know each other. There's no way for them to know each other. So your eyes will never know an echo. And your ears will never know a rainbow. Your ears will never know the taste of raisins. Your eyes will never know the smell of a fresh forest. And so now we have all these independent things. They seem to work together, but in fact they're all separate, and they don't know each other. They can't know each other. And then you notice that the world is like that too. Like the flames of a fire, they don't know each other. Or like the current in a river, the currents in a river, they don't know each other. They can't know each other. And just as that's a foundational truth, we can't know when things began. Name the beginning of something. Let's just try it. Pick any object. Let's just try it.
I mean, it's the same problem of like finding causality. I can't find one
No, it's
starting
not the
point.
same exactly, but let's just give me, for the sake of the audience, pick an object and let's find out where it began.
Okay, let's just start with like me, like when I was born, or like the
No, that's not a good one because now we're talking about the self again.
Okay,
we could use you, and maybe we'll do that later. But I'm just asking for any object.
Okay, let's start with like
you are an object.
Yeah, like bottle, like the bottle I have on my table.
Okay, what's it made out of?
Plastic.
And what's that made out of?
Plastic is it's like made up of molecules which are made up of atoms, and atoms are
No. It's made of oil.
Oh, that way. Okay, yeah, oil. Yeah.
Okay, now when did the oil start?
Oil basically came up from all these, like these fossil objects that were in the ground, and they were crushed. And
what do you mean dead animals and plants?
Yeah.
All right, so now we have dead animals and plants. Where did those animals and plants start?
They started maybe a long time ago when they were alive.
Many billions of years ago.
Yeah.
But and they lived on an ancient Earth, presumptively. A few billion years old. Now, where did that ground come from?
The ground.
Where did that Earth come from?
Is there a same?
We go back to stars, right? Yeah. Broken up stars or something like that.
Yeah, we
what about those stars? So we can't know the beginning of anything, anything at all. And just that contemplation of it. So one moves from meditation to contemplation, and one realizes the benefits of meditation are that they help the mind get calm enough to do the contemplation. So, like I say, these things can't know each other, and we can't know any beginnings to anything.
So like if I just go back to that example, like we go to like Big Bang, and then we know before that we don't have an answer. So like we basically don't have an answer of how things began.
We can't, it's more than we don't have an answer. In principle, we could never find the beginning. But let's say we don't have an answer. That's a simpler way, but the more true way to say it is we have no way of knowing whatsoever.
I mean, we have no way of knowing that now.
We had no way of knowing it before.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe in the future there will be more evolution or technological evolution, and we might be able to get some answers.
No. In principle, we cannot know. In principle, the ear cannot know vision. In principle, the eye cannot know sound. In principle, the nose cannot know, I don't know, what's the name? Give me another sense. I'm blocking. Because it has skin on it, it's able to know temperature and know all, so, but it's just a confusing example. But in principle, we can't know these things any more than one lick of flame can know another lick of flame. Or one current or in a river can know another current in a river. Or one raindrop can know another raindrop. I mean, in principle, these cannot know each other. And so, okay, keep going.
Yeah, so with that, like contemplation and understanding, what has happened to my life now is mind has gotten pretty good at like not getting attached to things in a way. So like, let's say when something happens, mind is like, oh yeah, we'll see. So like mind is not getting attached, and it's like, oh, we'll see what happens, and then it moves on. Because it kind of...
Okay, so that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, because it kind of understands that like I can't reason with my intellect what is good for me, what is bad for me. I don't have a way.
But I'm trying to take you to the next step where there is no me. Right? So what you've done, I mean, you're trying to take, see, your life is better. It's always been better. It's just that your mind created another narrative, baseless fears, baseless, anxieties, baseless, fantasies about what can go wrong. So now your life didn't change. What changed was your mind. Your mind matured and you learned some things. And now the next thing to do is to let go of the concept of self, which is not easy to do. I'm not saying it's easy or perfect necessarily in the beginning, but that's the truth of it. And then you've solved the problem of old age, sickness, and death.
Can that be done without getting a Satori?
Yes. That's what the flower ornament's about. These are not really opinions. These are things that any serious philosopher or any serious scientist that you got to sit down long enough to let go of their theories for just a few days or whatever, they would acknowledge that all these things are true. Things are either true or they're not true in a way. I mean, if you're not jumping levels of abstraction. And so to let go of the false and to hold on hard to the true, to hold on fast to the truth, that's not asking for a whole lot, is it? Not really. It's just asking people to, or any person to give up their delusions for a while and consider the possibility that they are delusional. Which, as we know from for example, the Sufis, that the world is upside down and backwards. And they don't let people disturb their dream. I mean, look what happened to Jesus. Look what happened to Socrates. Look what happened to Galileo.
So this is what I did, which is give up
what you did. Again, see what you did. Okay, what did you do?
Yeah, I basically said, okay, let's give up this delusion of me being an I for a bit, and then see what happens. So with that, life became more natural because now.
There you go, good.
But I'm not worried about me as such, because I'm in this mode of practicing for now.
Well, it takes a lifetime to do that. You know that pretty much, unless you're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Not a lifetime, but it takes a good 10 years. So good. And gradually, as that me and I drop out, then what's left is this marvelous, wonderful universe with a whole different set of rules. It's very hard for us to stop and say, oh, my teachers were all wrong. That's very difficult to do, but that's what's going to happen. That has to happen. And it could be that all of humanity can move forward because of the progress that's being made with the mental technology, the cognitive technology of AI. As we begin to separate the mind from consciousness or awareness or the substrate of the universe or the creative or the Tao or what the Christians will call God, right? So, or truth. So yeah, you're just feeling freer and lighter and easier to be in the world, and it's very hard. It's very easy to get it to go move further in this than 99% of the population. It's very easy to do, not because of any great shakes on the practitioner's part, but because the rest of humanity is so friggin' unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just grossly unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they can be so easily moved around by propaganda and cult leaders and political figures and ideologies, because they don't think for themselves, and they don't even feel for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a criticism, God bless them, but it's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you want to keep going down this road? Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing is you've obviously made progress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to give you some more progress, the next step in progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So as I keep doing this, like, which is keeping the me out and just being natural, sometimes thoughts pop up that like, really, can it is it possible without a Satori? It seems like Satori needs to happen for me to actually know that there is no me.
That's not true. Did Rupert Spira have Satori?
I don't know whether he had it.
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know why. See, again, you're trying to impose rules. Mm-hmm. You're trying to impose structure, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
I mean, if Satori occurs to an evolved enough person, there's nothing remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
In truly enlightened master, there's no Satori because it's just the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
The world is gorgeous and suffused with love, and there's no boundary or separateness anywhere. And there's no beginning and end, and there's no alienation from the source.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, would you call that Satori and somebody who's already enlightened? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, there's the gradual path and there's the sudden path.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, both have been used. In Chan in Huayan Buddhism, which is where the flower order comes from, that's a gradual path.
Mm-hmm.
I think only Chan or Zen became really preoccupied with that notion.
Mm-hmm.
In Tibetan Buddhism, I remember, so I don't recall it being described as a goal particularly.
I think
the Dharmakaya is the Dharmakaya, so.
Isn't the goal is to know the true reality so that actual life can begin from that point?
Yeah. And that can be a gradual process. And probably most often is a gradual process.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Try book 10, An Enlightening Being Asks for Clarification.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gorgeous book.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how it could be difficult at first, but it's really not difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing's difficult once you understand it, right?
Yeah.
Algebra looks impossibly hard.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a third grader or fourth grader,
mm-hmm.
and you don't know what the symbols mean or whatever, and then it just becomes easy because you've learned something.
Mm-hmm. I think I have one more question on this topic, and then we can move on to other stuff.
Okay, go ahead.
So like both recently and a while ago, I saw a video of Krishnamurti. So someone asked him, how can we experience divine? And then what he said was, you just basically you drop off, you drop all these things off, you become very observant, and then slowly your mind gets quieter and quieter, eventually relinquishing everything, and you don't even seek anymore. And once a mind becomes like that, then divinity then things can happen on their own.
They happen on their own all the time anyway. You just don't notice because you're preoccupied with something else. Yeah, okay, that sounds like Krishnamurti's teaching pretty much in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
But Krishnamurti, remember, he came from a culture that was so, and a childhood that was so imbued with this stuff, mm-hmm. that for him it was just obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was raised by the Theosophists, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. But even for him, like something happened, like his brother died.
Yeah,
I think,
so if you want to call it Satori, what happened to him? His brother dies, and he gradually has a nervous breakdown or something like that, and basically says, I'm shutting down this church because this is all a bunch of bogus, BS. Mm-hmm. And you could call it, I don't think he would call it Satori. Mm-hmm. I don't think he would call it Kensho or Moksha or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He might, I don't know. I don't know. But okay, so what's the question about Krishnamurti?
So even with the gradual process or the sudden process, it seems like there are prerequisites, which is a mind needs to be prepared first so that it can, it is able to receive that.
A mind needs to be deconditioned. It needs to be cleaned up. It needs to learn that much of what it's learned through conditioning or repetition, mm-hmm. or emotion is false. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay.
If you believe there were rainforests underneath the ocean because you've been told that all your life, mm-hmm. you would have to be disabused of that notion, right? You'd have to say, okay, that's not true. Mm-hmm. Now, Krishnamurti is a special case, as are some of the other, as all of them are, really. And the preparation for something is gradual. Mm-hmm. So, it's the same. It ultimately ends up the same thing. Now, if you can clear away your delusions, in one fell swoop, particularly the delusion of the ego, then you can say it's relatively sudden. Mm-hmm. But usually that takes a real calamity in life. For most of us, right? Mm-hmm. And your ego is crushed. That's what could put it. Poor Krishnamurti, he'd been moved to England where he knew nobody, mm-hmm. where he wasn't like any of the people around him. Mm-hmm. He was being worshipped as some kind of, the next coming of Christ or something. Mm-hmm. And he's supposed to be this great spiritual master, but he can't even keep his brother alive. Plus, they didn't even tell him that he was going to die. His brother was quite sick, I think, as I recall. And the people that were his owners or his managers or whatever you want to call them, they didn't tell him until later, I think. So his trust was broken. His life was broken. He has nobody to lean on. That was broken. Mm-hmm. His church was rotten. And so now, what has the guy got? He's got nothing. And so what's left of his ego just bites the dust. And a similar thing seemed to happen with Eckhart Tolle and with many others. And sometimes I think I should write a psychology paper on the mundane ways to wipe out the ego. Now, in mental patients, the ego is oftentimes very, very damaged or distorted. Mm-hmm. But what they end up with some of the same conclusions. It's interesting. The boundaries are dissolved and so on and so forth, but they get their conditioning still is there, and so they get psychotic. Mm-hmm. And at some point we can talk about the differences between the madman and the saint, but suffice it to say that there are many ways to crush the ego, mm-hmm. but only some of them are useful. Mm-hmm. Also, with psychotic patients, the ego comes right back. Mm-hmm. but their boundaries are way off. I remember one guy, I was a resident in Boston, and some very, very sick, poor kid, he was in his mid-20s, and I was on an inpatient unit, because most of our training was done on inpatient units back then, so we'd really get to know people. At any rate, this psychotic patient of mine, we'd meet with them daily. We'd take them to our offices or whatever. And sometimes when the patients are very, very sick, our offices are right off the main room. I'm thinking of the word lobby, but it's more like the main. There was a word for it, we used it. So the shared space. Anyway, one day I came to him for our appointment, and he made this kind of grand gesture in all seriousness and said, "Would you like to come into my office now?" I mean, he became the doctor, I became the patient, and he was asking me if I wanted to step into his office so we could talk. So that's loose ego boundaries. And psychiatrists that have studied psychosis know all about this stuff. And that's where paranoia comes from. You project your hostile impulses onto the outside world, and so you have externalized your own impulses, and now the world has come to attack you. So anyway, that might be useful to somebody out there someday.
I was thinking, what about doing an experiment with oneself? So let's say someone who is suffering, and then say for next 1 year, I'm not going to be worried about my desires, I'm not going to be worried about me, and I'm just going to do what's supposed to be done. Will that get them to the same place?
Okay, but listen to what you just said. I'm not going to be worried about me. I'm not going to be attached to my desires. See, in the sentence itself, and this is part of what makes it difficult, is because language is built around this too. The sentence itself, needing a subject, inserts one. So our language requires subject and object.
Yeah.
But reality is not constructed the way language is.
Yeah.
Language is a very crude, primitive thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe when language drops out, then most of your problems drop out. And this is what Krishnamurti means by saying, can you see a tree without naming it? Can you see a tree without making it the object and you the subject, is what he's trying to say. Can you see a world without subject and object? Much closer to reality. I'm going to have to stop pretty soon, so
okay.
Let's get to the last question.
Okay. The last one, I think I will just finish the thought here, that what I wanted to say was different, which is maybe in an experience. I think that will require more time. Let me just ask a simple...
Wait a minute, do it real quick. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, so instead of saying I decide not to worry about it, what I meant was that as the experience is happening, there's a certain decision was made that I'm not gonna I don't know how to say without saying I, that
right, exactly. So you got to drop the language.
Yeah.
That's why in the Tao Te Ching it says those who know do not speak. How could they speak? Right? They just point.
Yeah.
So welcome to the next problem that you've got. I don't mean problem in the problem sense, but the next stepping stone in the different stages. All right, so good. This is exactly correct. You're in exactly the place where you need to be now, which is a struggle. I say you too, which doesn't help. But that's the only way we have to speak.
Got it. I think I have. Do we have time for one question? Or
yeah, one more.
Okay. So this is from the book Chief in Goodness. I've just read like a few lines. It's a long, I think, list of like poem kind of verses. It says, of the many lands in that one atom, some have Buddhas, some do not. Some are polluted, some are pure. Some are large, some are small. Some are forming, some disintegrating. Some are upright, some are sideways. Some are like heat mirages on a vast plain. Some are like Indra's net in the heavens. So when they said some have Buddhas and some do not, that part kind of threw me off. Is like, because I thought Buddha is like the reality, like the Buddha reality. So it's all pervading. So how can
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. See, again, you have to give up that concept. That's a very precious concept to you. I'm sure it would be precious to me.
Mhm.
But are there worlds without Buddhas? Are there worlds without consciousness? Are there worlds that are hell realms?
Mhm.
Are there worlds that are more like endurance? Are there worlds that are like diamonds? What are these worlds that they keep talking about?
Mhm.
So that's a contemplation.
Mhm.
And again, that book, Chief in Goodness, goes with another book. You know, for example, this beautiful one called, what's it called? An Enlightenment being asked for clarification.
Mhm.
So the whole thing fits together. That's my point.
Mhm.
And it rewards the patient. So just keep working with it,
Mhm.
or just chant it. And it's a sutra. You can chant it. It's better chanted because there's so much repetition and rhythm.
Mhm.
That's to help with sticking it to your bones, right?
Mhm.
Just keep doing that, and you'll see bit by bit.
Mhm.
You know, like walking in the mist, you'll get soaking wet.
Mhm.
Soaking wet.
Mhm.
All right, sir?
All right. Yeah.
Vaya con Dios, amigo. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.